It is time for my 2018 NBA redraft, redrafting every lottery pick made in 2018, more so on the criteria of best player available rather than the best fit for the team. Starting off with the first overall pick made by the Suns of Deandre Ayton, that will be redrafted to, of course, Ryan Hollins. No, a girl can dream. It'll just be made to Luka Doncic. Luka Doncic, by the way, if there was a redraft for all NBA players outside of just the 2018 NBA draft, Luka still might go number 1 overall considering the future of the NBA and his upside. He went from a good, solid rookie year to a great, stellar season his second year that catapulted him to a consensus top 10 player, arguably top 5 player in the NBA right now among healthy players. Now, why was he drafted 3rd overall and not 1st overall, knowing everything we know now? Well, for a couple of reasons. A lot of people question his game. Sure, he played in Europe, but a lot of people didn't think he was fast enough, didn't think he was strong enough, didn't think what he did to score in Europe would work in the NBA, let alone Villanova. I even had one guy come up to me years and years ago and say, "Yeah, Luka's alright, but we'll never know how actually good he is until he plays against Bucknell's 2-3 zone." Shut up, Henry! But now the haters and detractors are all silent as Luka has risen to heights never thought possible at the age of 21. And how many times have we heard that in the past month, that Luka's only 21? I've heard it so many times I want to blow my brains out. His performance against the Clippers was one of the best single-effort performances in the playoffs on a team that was vastly inferior when it comes to talent, as well as when it comes to the overall health. Very injury depleted, especially in Game 4. Without Porzingis down the stretch, and oh yeah, they beat the shit out of him throughout the series like he was BJ Penn fighting Nick Diaz at UFC 137. But Luka is a star and he is a special player. And it takes a special player to unite the internet in this very politically divisive time that we're living in. Thanks to Luka's play, the internet united in the name of slandering Paul George. Playoff P became known as Pandemic P, he became known as Playoff P as in urine. The internet was united for about a week, just in the name of slandering Paul George. And while it did come at the expense of Paul George's emotional well-being, the crushing of a man's spirit is sometimes the price you have to pay for unity. Now Luka still has some areas he needs to work on. Defense, free throw shooting, we saw that in Game 6, sloppy turnovers, his 3-point percentage, but he's accomplishing things at a young age only done throughout history by a select few people, like when Nas released Omatic, when Joan of Arc fought in whatever battle that was hundreds of years ago, and this guy, Johnny Kim, accomplishing more in his 30 years than we ever will in our pathetic lives. The future of Luka in Dallas is bright, but the front office needs to surround him with veterans and stars because as much as I love Boban, he ain't gonna cut it. And as for the Suns fans that could have had Luka and Booker, well, I think we'll leave it to that. You could have had Luka and Booker. Also, shout out to Mavs coach God Sham God. Okay, that is it with the first overall pick, Luka Doncic. Do we still have time for the rest of the video? Okay, I guess we do. We can continue. With the second overall pick, originally made by the Kings who selected Marvin Bagley, they're not going to do that again. They'll be selecting Trae Young, the man who will be compared to Luka Doncic until the grave. This is another great player taken in 2018 who has overachieved and is a no-brainer for the second overall pick. A wizard on offense who can find the open man or shoot from anywhere. His notable criticism is of course his defense, but that's something he'll need to keep working on if he wants to get to the next level. But for now, with a second overall pick, a guy who was an all-star starter in the East in his second year, this is a no-brainer for number 2, and the future is bright for Trae Young. The number 3rd overall pick in this redraft made by the Hawks where they drafted Luka Doncic will now be made to draft Shai Gilgeous Alexander. Ooh, controversial. Shai has gone from a solid young player in a sea of young players last year on the Clippers to now one of the bright young stars in the NBA on the Thunder. This man could easily be an all-star next year. Going from 10.8 points per game last year on the Clippers to 19 this year on the Thunder, he is one of the main reasons the Thunder not only shocked the world by just making the playoffs, but to also become the 5th seed. His great handling, his creative way of scoring, and his upside making him a great value pick at the 3rd overall pick. He was originally drafted 11th. We're going to bump him up a little bit. The number 4th overall pick in the redraft, originally made by the Grizzlies to take Jaren Jackson Jr., will now be selecting, oh, I know all my fans of creativity and originality will love this, but in this redraft, the Grizzlies will be taking Jaren Jackson Jr. He is one of the most unique, promising, yet underrated young players in the game today. He, along with Ja Morant and their young core, had the Grizzlies humming like Kid Cudi earlier in the year with their exciting, flashy play. The Grizzlies in January were must-watch TV, much like Love Island Season 2 currently on CBS. Thanks to Jackson, the Grizzlies were destined to be in the playoffs pre-bubble, Bubble Grizzlies, of course, are a different story. That was just a total disaster, but my point still stands. Jackson is everything a new age big man should be. A well-rounded player who can defend the rim, but also shoot from the outside. He's shooting 40%, nearly 40% from 3 this year on 6.5 attempts. And I went back and forth on whether SGA or Jaren should be taken with the 3rd overall pick in the redraft, but I'll give the tie to the healthier player. And since Jaren just tore his meniscus, I had to take SGA with the 3rd overall pick, so I will be passing on a big man, just like the Bucks and the Cavs did to Joel Embiid. Maybe it won't pay off in the long run. With the 5th pick in this redraft, the Mavs will not be taking Trae Young anymore, and instead will be selecting the original number 1 overall pick, Deandre Ayton. Ayton's name has been dragged through the mud the last 2 years, mostly due to how well the players drafted shortly after him like Luka, Trae Young, and Jaren Jackson have been playing. And also because he failed a drug test, so that's not good either. But Ayton's sophomore year has proved to be somewhat of a resurgence for the big man. He is a double-double machine, although in some cases I saw around the rim I feel like he could use his strength and his size more to his advantage and finish stronger, but he's on the right path to becoming a dominant big man, and he was a key piece this year on one of the greatest teams to ever play the game of basketball. I am of course talking about the 2020 Bubble Suns. Number 6 overall, originally used by the Magic to draft Mo Bamba. Not in this redraft, we will now be taking Mitchell Robinson. And that's how good Mitchell Robinson, who currently plays for the Knicks, is. People can put aside the constant Knicks slander for a minute to acknowledge how good Mitchell Robinson is, and how much promise he is showing. He's known mostly for his defense, but his field goal percentage this year was good for 74.2%, which is good for best all-time field goal percentage, even topping Will Chamberlain's record of 72.7%. Now, 93% of the shots did come at the rim, which is still impressive. He broke the record, but it's also one of the reasons why fans nutted at this video of Mitchell practicing this offseason. And it's cute, but I'll warn you for a second. Never get overexcited on players practicing in the offseason. I've learned that lesson the hard way. And this is the most important thing. He is still playing for the Dolan Knicks. When you play under Jimmy Dolan, your ceiling can only go so high. I hate to say it, because I like this guy. He seems like a good kid. But this was a great pick. He moves up from being originally drafted 36th overall to now the 6th overall pick. Now the 7th overall pick in the redraft, originally used by the Bulls to draft Wendell Carter Jr., they now will be taking another junior, MPJ Michael Porter Jr. After shooting the lights out in the bubble regular season, which is good enough to make the second team all bubble, yes that is real, MPJ has struggled in the playoffs, and for the Nuggets it has pretty much been the Jamal Murray show, as it should be. He's played damn near out of his mind. While MPJ can shoot the lights out, if his J isn't falling, he's pretty much useless, as his defensive game is just not NBA ready yet. I mean, I hate to say it, he's a liability on defense. That's mixed with the fact that his health is still in question, and he hasn't played a full NBA season with regular minutes yet. The injury question mark is going to dog Michael Porter Jr. the rest of his year. I mean, he's going to be 20 years retired. We're going to still be talking about, can Michael Porter Jr. stay healthy? He's going to be dead and buried. We're going to be like, can this guy stay healthy for a full career? But his upside is incredible. It is good enough for him to go 7th overall in this redraft, and I stand by that pick. The number 8th overall pick, originally used by the Cavs to select Colin Sexton, they will now be taking Devontae Graham, one of the breakout stars of this past year. A player who Luka Doncic himself said that Devontae Graham should replace him as a Most Improved Player finalist. Graham has nearly quadrupled his production on offense this year, has become a sharpshooter on a godforsaken Hornets team that hasn't seen the sun in maybe 2 decades. It will be up to Graham, the Hornets' young core, and whoever they draft 3rd overall, potentially LaMelo Ball, triple Bs, for Graham to get the Hornets out of the hellhole that they've been in for the last 10 years. Drafted 34th overall, he's moving up to 8th because he damn sure deserves it. The number 9 pick, originally used by the Knicks to draft one Kevin Knox. Swing and a miss. The Knicks will now be drafting the former 10th overall pick, Mikal Bridges. I mean, not former, he'll always be the 10th overall pick. This list is not real, it's fiction. But in this, he's the former 10th overall pick because we're taking him 9 right now. Bridges, who is a very hard worker and uses his length to his advantage, is turning out to pretty much be what everyone thought he could be, which is a very efficient 3-and-D guy. Of course, Bridges was immediately traded to the Suns after being drafted by the Sixers, who then used that pick that they got from the Suns to trade for Tobias Harris later in the year. Of course, Bridges had nothing to do with the 2019 signing of Tobias Harris, where he got that huge chunk of change, but you'll see all the time Toby and Mikal Bridges being compared to each other. And I'd just like to say Tobias is still a much better player than Mikal Bridges. Let's not be a prisoner of the moment here, people. And Henry, if you keep the shit up, the next time I see you, I'm beating your ass. But yeah, Bridges 9th overall in this redraft, a key piece on the 2020 undefeated Bubble Suns. The Suns, the 2020 Bubble Suns, a unit that throughout history could only be outmatched, perhaps, by the Holy Roman Army. The 10th pick originally used by the Sixers to draft Mikal Bridges, they now will be taking Marvin Bagley. And let's be real for a second here. The only time outside of talking to Sacramento Kings fans that you've heard Marvin Bagley's name is to roast him and the Kings organization for being drafted ahead of Luka Doncic. That is almost definitely the only context you've heard Marvin Bagley's name being brought up. And if you have heard it in other contexts, you're either hallucinating or you're a liar. And there's nothing worse than a liar, except maybe a ghoster. But still, being a liar is pretty bad. This guy is slandered almost as much as how the Catholic Church slandered the good name of Jan Hus before lighting him on fire. And remember, that's just because Jan Hus told them, hey guys, maybe don't be corrupt assholes just for a minute. They of course said, no Jan Hus, fuck you, we're still going to be corrupt assholes, and you're being lit on fire. I have not and will never forget. Now Bagley can't seem to stay healthy and definitely hasn't lived up to the hype, which is why he slides to number 10. I've seen some flashes of brilliance from him, but maybe I'm just living in the past and taking how good he was at Duke into too much consideration. Only time will tell, but I'll take my chances with Bagley at number 10 here. Now with my final 6 picks to complete my 2018 NBA redraft, I'll be moving pretty quickly with less analysis because I'm lazy and don't feel like doing the video editing. So here we go. The 11th pick originally made by the Hornets to draft and trade for SGA, now will be made to select the Bulls' Wendell Carter Jr. The 12th pick made by the Clippers to draft Miles Bridges, well now they're going to take the promising young scoring threat Colin Sexton, currently on the Cavs. 13th overall in this redraft, the Clippers will be taking the promising undrafted player Kendrick Nunn, currently on the Heat. The 14th overall pick, the Nuggets will use their pick to draft the sharpshooting Duncan Robinson, another undrafted player currently on the Miami Heat. Sheesh, what is Moneyball's Brad Pitt in their scouting department or something? The 15th overall slot, the shitty Wizards, will now be taking sharpshooting Landry Shamet, a later round pick made by the Sixers in 2018. And the 16th and final overall pick, the Suns will take Dante DiVincenzo, who was originally drafted 17th overall by the Bucks. And a lot of people going into the 2018 NBA draft questioned DiVincenzo's body of work because without the 2018 NCAA Finals performance against Michigan, DiVincenzo might not have even been drafted. I mean, he played out of his mind, but a lot of people said, alright, it's one game, you shouldn't take him in the first round, you shouldn't take him that high. But he has proven everyone to be wrong, as he is a key bench player on the contending Milwaukee Bucks. And in terms of effort, hustle, and hard work, DiVincenzo is one of the most blue-collar players in the NBA, behind only guys like Javon Carter of the Suns and TJ McConnell of the Pacers. Now that is it. DiVincenzo is my final pick in this lottery redraft. Of course, I missed off notable players. That of course includes Kevin Huerter. Where are my gingers at? Stand the fuck up. Mo Bamba, D'Anthony Melton, Shaq Milton, Jalen Brunson, Josh Okogie, Jordan McLaughlin, among others, guys like Miles Bridges, Lonnie Walker. Have I mentioned enough players to cover my ass when this list looks like shit in a few years? Oh, Grayson Allen, of course. If you ain't cheating, you ain't trying. Alright, that is it. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. It really helps me out, especially if you're watching a 13.5-minute video. I mean, you may as well, right, if you're here at this point. Also, check out the website. We got great articles. You know, the Pentagon Papers, all those great journalistic works? Looks like shit compared to what we got on the site. Check it out, as well as on Facebook, on Twitter, on LinkedIn, on Tinder, on MySpace. Check us out on there on social media. Thank you so much, and RIP to Waylon Jennings. Is Waylon Jennings dead? Okay, yeah, RIP Waylon Jennings.